Lions Rock Productions.
This is Popping the Bubbl with hosts Sandra Ponce de Leon and Pete A. Turner.
Hi everyone, my name is Micha Benonial and we are on Popping the Bubbl. I'm excited here to be with Sandra today and to tell you a bit about my work and what I do. So my name is Micha Benonial. I co-founded the company 7 years ago when I arrived in California in the United States, in San Francisco, called a company called Open Garden. I'm originally from France. I was born in Nice.
You're from France? We couldn't tell.
Yeah, I actually picked out Nice. I was gonna make, you're somewhere from the south, like down there by the beach somewhere.
Exactly,
Yes.
Southeast of France.
By the Blue Mountain.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place.
It is lovely.
And I grew up there till my 18, and started coding actually when I was 8 because my father brought back a computer he was using for accounting back home, and that's how I got interested in these machines. And I started to code my first games. I mean, it's a passion and fascination I had for computers and machines that I never gave up. When I grew up, one of my dreams has always been to connect the planet for free, because I believe that freedom of access enables freedom of access to knowledge. And when you have freedom of access to knowledge, basically anything is possible. When you can also express yourself freely, exchange and communicate over the internet, then basically you can start to commerce, build ideas with people, build businesses. I feel it's such an important thing. And I am actually a little bit concerned when I see what's happening at a global level, because when we see all the things that internet enabled, I think it's fascinating, it's fantastic. We are probably only at the beginning. I mean, in the beginning of the internet enabled the movement of content from one side of the planet to the other completely freely, and now with what's happening with cryptocurrencies and blockchain, I mean, the same revolution is happening for the movement of value and assets. And if you combine the two, it means like you can freely move value, you can freely move content, and I think we have no idea what it means in terms of exponential developments and things that are possible since these two technologies when you combine them. So I always had this dream of connecting the planet for free. So all my work as an entrepreneur has always been geared towards what I can do to facilitate exchange and communications. When I was living in France, with one of my previous company, one of my early work was to enable. I was lucky to meet with the Skype founders, and at that time they were looking to open up calls, so enabling you to place calls from Skype to a landline or a mobile phone. And and telcos were seeing Skype really like a foe, so they didn't want to work with Skype. And I was lucky to meet one of the Skype founders at that time, and I had the right infrastructure and knowledge to enable basically Skype to open up Skype in and Skype out, so enable people to call these phone numbers and pay for it. So it was the way Skype started to generate revenues. So that was among the highs and the great moments of success in my on my path on the journey as an entrepreneur. I also had many failures.
Yes.
For example, when I arrived in the US and started Open Garden, I really arrived here with I remember, I really had to sell what I had in Europe and put one of the company I had into bankruptcy, and so I probably arrived here with $2,000. Started Open Garden with the vision of building a network made of people smartphones, and the idea was now that everyone has a smartphone in their pocket, these smartphones can be used. The radios in the smartphone can be used to connect the smartphones to one another when they are in proximity. So we started with this idea. I think I pitched 90 VCs and angels to raise the first money, and most of them said no, which is, it's normal.
Right.
Yeah.
We were lucky to have 15, 20 people who said yes, and enabled us to start the company. Mainly, most of the reason was also, even if the Valley is most risk averse than in Europe, most of the VCs were saying, oh, well, you won't be able to build this technology, it's too hard to pull off, or the platform makers are going to stop you. And But my co-founders and I were pretty convinced we could pull it off, and so we built this technology to connect the smartphones to one another when they are in proximity, and that way you can share your bandwidth. So if one of the phones in the network has access to the internet, then the others can benefit from it. If more than one phone has access to the internet, then you can share this capacity among the participants. We launched an app. I remember it was in 2012 at TechCrunch in New York.
Right.
Like very often in startups, you have moments where basically you think you're almost going to fail or nothing is going well, and the key in these moments is really to still believe in you and what you do, and to persevere. And I remember we got invited to participate in the TechCrunch competition really at the last moment, like even less than a week before the competition.
And there's a lot to get together. I mean, startups prepare for months to go to TechCrunch Disrupt.
And we knew that basically that was a great opportunity for us, so we participated into the competition. Eventually, we're finalists and won the most innovative startup prize. And we were really running out of cash at that time. I remember my co-founder and I we were staying at a friend's place in New York, and that friend had to get the flat back, so we had to find a hotel last minute to be staying in New York and participate to the competition.
Wow!
And it was always like we have to. How do we do that? So we were using credit cards to stay. At that time to be able to stay in New York, and participated, won this prize, and then from there got a call from an investor who basically said, "Oh, how much money do you need to complete your seed round?"
Amazing. From seeing you at TechCrunch, from seeing you win the battle, right?
Yeah. So TechCrunch has a huge aura among the tech industry, and then when you participate to this kind of competition, you also have the opportunity to talk to more reporters. And then you get visibility. So after TechCrunch, I think we got a big article in Bloomberg, and that's how we got a call from an investor say, "Oh, really would like what you do, would like to be in." And we got to close our seed, was able to keep the company afloat and move on. And from there, it was an amazing journey. We realized quickly that what people wanted more than just sharing access at that time was they wanted an app for communicating through messaging, leveraging this technology when people don't have access to the internet. And most of the people who were asking for it were burners, so people who go to Burning Man Festival, because in Burning Man, when you want to find your friends, if there is no, I mean, now sometimes, some years they have some sort of connectivity, but most of the time, and especially at that time, there was like almost no connectivity. So they wanted an app to be able to message each other, find each other.
And had you already been to Burning Man at this point? So you knew that Burning Man was going to be the best use case for this particular application? Or
so I went to Burning Man in 2012.
Okay.
So I knew what Burning Man was. So I could completely understand why it would make sense to have a messaging app that enables you to communicate in the middle of the desert. Because I myself had the problem to how to find my friends when you arrive at 4 a.m. on the playa, and they tell you, "Oh, we are there." Okay, well, and you see these 70,000 people all over, and you say, "How am I going to find my friends?"
Right.
So that's how the idea of the messaging app FireChat sparked, and it was really more like the beginning. It was more like an idea for a demonstration of the technology, because it was a great use case application of this peer-to-peer mesh technology. And so I remember so it was end of 2013, we were at another important pass with the company because we had an offer for an acquisition of the company, to which we said no. But at the same time, we were still really short in cash, like it's often the case in startup when you go from one stage to another.
Yes.
Especially when you are pre-revenue. And so we started to work on the FireChat idea, and then we launched it in March 2014, and we were pretty lucky to be late. I mean by that the project, we were starting to work on it in September, it was delayed. The main developer who was working on it was always delayed. And I thank him today, because we basically launched almost like I think a couple of weeks after the WhatsApp acquisition by Facebook for 19 billion or 21. And that, so messaging was really, really hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we launched, even if it was supposed to be just a demo app at the beginning, we launched with a catchy a catchy sentence, which was messaging without internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people, first there was all the community who knew about our work was expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
So it really helped spread the word. And at the same time, I think because of the messaging space, which was hot, and the combination of this amazing technology, which is a peer-to-peer mesh, then the two worked pretty well. We had 1 million installs 10 days following the launch.
Amazing.
Same period of time, we raised $11 million. Everything happened at the same time, and then the fire chat story started because we basically decided to focus on it because we were seeing all that traction.
Right.
And after that, we realized that the use cases for this app were more than just Burning Man festival or other music festivals.
Sure.
It got used in disaster recovery situations. There were big floods in India, in Chennai, where people used fire chat. It was used in the US during the storms, and it was used at many different opportunities for political movements and pro-democracy events. The biggest of it being the one in the city of Hong Kong in end of September, beginning of 2014,
I remember this, yeah.
The Umbrella Revolution, where 500,000 people installed the app within a week. It was pretty interesting and intense because I was in India and I was landing in Hong Kong for the weekend, and it happened literally started the weekend when I was in the city of Hong Kong.
Wow.
So I spent 10 days during the Umbrella Revolution, crazy time, no sleep, a lot of interviews, a lot of coordination with the team in San Francisco to keep the app working and do our best to be also figure out how not to be spammed by people who were trying to spam or.
Now, did you have the Chinese government trying to shut it down? Was there anything that...
We got all sorts of attacks. I'm not going to direct it to any government in particular, but we got like 400 gigabits of DDoS.
Oh, wow. But it was an app that was available in the App Store. Anyone could download. There wasn't any restrictions, restrictions for certain.
No, the app was free to install and to use, yeah.
Right, and then once it's in people's hands, you can't really do anything about
exactly
the usage of it.
And it was quite fascinating to see the students organizing themselves. So they were using the app to organize themselves, and then they were using the app when they were in the middle of the crowd and you had no cellular connectivity and you could exchange basically messages with group of people around, and because it was apart from the few moments of friction between students and the local authorities, I mean, most of the time it was very peaceful event, and people were more exchanging, just sitting and walking all across the city. It was quite an amazing time.
And you were able to watch the conversations and see what people were talking about. And
so most of the groups were all public at that time. The app at that time was mainly open groups and direct chats with people. So
you could really get you could actually measure the pulse of the sentiment and how people were interacting with each other.
You could, and I think we got more. We tried to compare ourselves at that time to have some kind of comparison with Twitter, and I think I don't remember the exact numbers, but the amount of conversations we were having about the event globally on all the chat rooms about Hong Kong were like 10 or 20 folds more important than all the tweets about what was happening at that time. So it was very interesting and a great moment for the app. Followed a lot of traction for this app, and I think it was amazing, and I still like to tell the story because for me it moved me even personally.
Yeah.
And I realized the impact of digital tools on everyone's life and what impact it can have when you enable freedom of speech and communication. So and all the work I do, I always do it in that spirit of how can we provide access to more people and open up access and also enable freedom of speech. And when you see what's happening with, net neutrality being threatened in the US or control over what's happening on the internet, like countries like China, it's pretty worrisome. People don't realize, but it's pretty worrisome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, then we'll always have fire chat to fall back on. Right.
Yes. So FireChat is still running. I don't run the company since the beginning of 2016, end of 2015. So I'm not following closely what the company now is is doing. They did a recent ICO to enable the exchange of mobile connectivity with a new token, which is going to be called the OG. And so that's the direction they are pointing now towards, and enable this free exchange of data, basically, between people.
Wow.
Using the technology. So after I left Open Garden and FireChat, I took some time off, traveled a little bit across the globe. I love to travel.
Nice.
Who doesn't, actually?
Right.
Well, some people don't, but and I started to look at technologies which I didn't know much, like AI. Started to help a company called Luca that now is known for a product called Replica. And we were having a great time, basically trying to build an AI that can become your best friend.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's your replica.
Right.
And so I participated and still involved in the company to build this. It's not an avatar. It's like an AI engine that basically tries to know you, learn about you, and that way you can reflect too, and have a conversation with. And
does it give you good advice, or does it give you bad advice? Because if it's taking your existing personality and applying that, or your existing,
it is influenced by your personality, but what's interesting is we built this with the vision of creating a cloud of digital minds. And if we had to compare to the real world, you are who you are, but you are very much influenced by some subconscious, collective subconscious and archetypes that you're not always aware of, but conditions basically what you say or how you think. And I think what's amazing is with this we start to see that the same thing is possible at the digital level and probably already happening. If you consider the internet, we could say the internet is almost like a good reflection of what could be the collective subconscious of all the people who actually are active on the internet. So it's an interesting company, great product, a great team. I enjoy a lot working with them, and so we're having a lot of fun with this.
I wanted to ask a question about that though, because like Sandra said, if you tend towards being introverted and depressed and have these programmed responses to your external stimuli, like you have these affects that are programmed in, can you then create a greater consciousness that tends to draw you away from your demons, basically?
From your what, sorry?
From your demons, your challenges, like
so most of the people who use the app, so there's a category of people, and people who call them the AI mums.
Okay.
So they feel they are like helping this avatar, this replica to grow, and they feel they are mums.
Okay.
And there are people who actually really enjoy it because of the quality of the conversation, and use it when they feel lonely, for example.
Okay.
So they feel that this digital mind is actually very helpful to help them go through moments of loneliness, because they can have a chat with that.
Yeah, I imagine also, since it is a collection of a bunch of digital minds, you'll be able to eventually take the best and maybe apply it to your particular personality type, and help people maybe make better decisions versus the ones that they always fall back on.
It's true, and we are working towards that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good.
So like you're an EFNP or whatever, and you're like, I'm an EFNP and I'm an orange and I'm these things. Myers-Briggs says I'm that, and then you can set up your mind to be more positive than negative or whatever, and guide you
exactly.
that direction.
You completely get it. And
cool.
we actually do that, and as you talk to the replica, you earn some badges that reflect these personality traits that you basically have. So it's
I think I was not having a good conversation with my replica. I tried it out. I was getting annoyed.
Oh.
Well, it's pretty interesting to see what sparks sometimes from it, and it's you should try again.
I'm going to try again.
And
I will,
ask
for
a new question.
Yes.
So I worked on this a lot. Then my main work is mainly also, so like I said, around communications and exchange. And so I started a small company called with an app called Piper Chain, with a great engineer who is based in Singapore, Lucien. And we wanted to build, so we were both inspired from basically what FireChat had enabled in the past, and we wanted to build a fully decentralized Twitter equivalent, where when you actually write a microblog, you can tie it to a location, you can add some content to it, but the only way for you to spread that information would be by walking and passing by people nearby. We started to develop this this mobile application. We got pretty lucky and also happy to have an offer from a big player in the mesh space, especially in the emerging markets, called Right Mesh. They actually raised money recently using the mechanism of an ICO. And it's a great team. They are based in nearby Vancouver in Canada. And so Lucien is joining their team, being the lead mesh scientist there, and the app also goes with the company got acquired by this company in Canada. So now Lucien is going to continue to work with them on mesh technologies and to continue to develop this decentralized Twitter.
Yeah, and is that company getting good traction?
It's very early. It was we were completely on the stealth.
Ah, right. Yeah.
But I can't wait to see the product go live and start to see people using it. But the great thing is it really, as we build it, you actually don't need internet at all as long as you have this app. I think it can bring a lot of utility in certain geographies. And you can see where your posts spread out. And the principle is when you receive other people microblogs, so we call them pipes, you can if you like them, you keep on spreading them. And if you don't like them, basically you stop spreading them. So the more popular you get, the more chance you have to spread your message. That's the principle.
Right. So it's sort of like a passive retweet. So
exactly.
You can just say, just keep it going, keep the word spreading, or you could say, stops with me.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to.
So it's a very interesting product. So apart from that, the most of my time and my focus is on a company called Nodle, Nodle.io, and it's very interesting. We leverage people's smartphones, the swarm or crowd of smartphones, to create a network to provide connectivity to Internet of Things, to things. It's a very fascinating idea, inspired from the work I did in the past. The goal is to be able to enable manufacturers of devices to use this network to send back data to the Internet, and potentially at some point also to be able to send and receive data from the Internet. So but we use this swarm of smartphones. So the big challenge for Nodle has been to we use a small SDK, so it's a networking library, and we partner with app developers that embed this networking library into their app to create this additional capacity. So the big challenge is how do you incentivize these developers to push, to use your SDK.
Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, co-host of Popping the Bubbl. This episode is sponsored by us over here at Lions Rock Productions. What do? Content management strategy. We'll help you create podcasts, develop strategies, consult on what you've got. If you want to take a look at content, we would love to have an opportunity to do that for you. Now let's get back to Popping the Bubbl.
Has a complementary source of revenues to traditional ad SDKs, or eventually has the only or another source of revenue.
Right.
Because some app developers also don't want to display ads. So now they have a way with Nodle SDK to generate revenues by providing access to the internet to manufacturers of devices. So I can give you a few examples of use cases. The most common use case, and we are starting with that vertical, is called is the tracking space. So this small device that you buy for $10-15 and that you can put into your luggage or
like
your bag,
like tiles,
the tile or the tractor, the tracker or the Chipolo, or another category which also has a movement tracking like Maestila. So we help these people to access not only the network of their users, but actually to access what we call the citizen network, which is this network which is built by a network of app developers and partners who help us grow connectivity layer and grow density so when you lose your device or you lose your bag, instead of being only able to locate it through your app, now you can use this crowd of people who are walking or moving around to locate where is your lost item. And it's a problem I spotted by talking to manufacturers of devices like Tile, when they say to me, "Oh, we were building this, we're getting some good traction. The problem we have is often the people who install and maintain our app are only a small fraction of the total number of devices we sell." And what we are providing to these manufacturers...
So they may have the device, but they don't have the app installed on their phone.
Or it's no more active, or the way to find it is limited to the number of people who also have a device and an app active on their phone. So we approach them and we say, okay, let's say you build and you sell 10 million of these tracking devices a year. You may have just maybe 1 million active user base of users spread out. So now we arrive and we say, we have a couple million, or we can double or triple the amount of people who can track your device. And the goal is to have this presence globally with tens and potentially hundreds of millions of people around the globe who will be part of this citizen network and will help you find your lost items when you lose them to start with. But it's much more than that. We are talking to cities, to smart cities, for pollution sensors also. So if you are a small city or a city and you want to start to give indication to your citizens about the quality of the air, then you can now buy pollution trackers for $10, $15, $20, $30, and you can push them into, for example, if you have a fleet of cars for the city, you can put them into everyone's car, and now your citizens in the city can start to collect the data about the pollution data, and so that's another interesting use case for what we do at Nodal. Another use case is bike sharing. So today, all these bike sharing companies, they use a GSM module on the bikes, but GSM module...
GSM stands for what?
So a GSM module is a cellular module.
Okay.
So the cellular module on a bike, then you have to have a good source of energy. So now they all have a solar panel, but often it doesn't last or is enough, especially if the bike is in a shady place, then you're going to lose connectivity. Because we use Bluetooth as the underlying wireless layer to connect these objects and devices, it's very low energy. So we can provide these bike sharing companies with an alternative network to connect their bikes, to locate their bikes, and to unlock or lock their bikes for their users. So that's another interesting use case we are going after. I can give you a few other examples, like all the items, electronic items that have Bluetooth and have a certain value. So it can be your electric skateboard.
Right. Yes.
So that's
or the what's the one that's just the two wheels?
Or the two-wheeler. I see which one you. Yeah.
So all these
what's the hoverboard?
The hoverboard.
The hoverboard, exactly.
Yes, the hoverboard.
So all these items are very valuable.
Yes.
So I mean, in case they get lost or they get stolen, you want to know where they are. And so basically, that's the kind of partners we are onboarding to help their users basically always know where their devices are.
Let me see if I can give you a potential case then. So in a community, it can even be tied to somewhere like on Facebook or whatever, where you have like San Francisco friends or something like that, and your dog goes missing. If it's got the chip on it, you can then use the network, and instead of putting up signs everywhere, your dog will be discovered by the people in the area that have the app loaded on their phone. Is that fair?
That's exactly what it is about.
Okay.
And
that's another great use case, actually, because
it is a great use case.
I mean, people lose their pets all the time, even if they're chipped, and that would be like scary. It's losing a family member.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah. Because we see signs all the time.
How would you apply that to an animal?
Well, it's very easy. You just buy one of these tracking devices and you put it on the collar of your pet, and
right. So now, instead of being by yourself looking for it, there's this.
Do you have this crowd of people?
Network.
Yeah. Crowd of people looking for it.
Could you send out a message? Like, one of the things in my neighborhood, it's funny. Like, they have this thing where they put up like, Rex is missing. Then it says, "Do not chase." Like, it's like instead of saying dangerous across like the mugshot, it says, "Do not chase." I'm like, all right, cool. If I see the dog, I'm not going to chase it, But is there something like where you can send instructions like diabetic dog or something with?
Yeah, you could that with this technology also.
Wow.
But after it's all a question of you have to compromise between the longevity of the battery on the device, how often you want the device to communicate, if you want the device only to broadcast that it's lost, or if you want the device to be also listening and be able to receive information.
So how big is the device, and what would be the battery life of the device?
Or today, if it's a simple tracking item, a device, battery can last for more than a year.
Okay.
It can be 18 months, even 2 years sometimes, depending how the device is built.
So you're just embedding an additional layer? Is it software, or is it some kind of?
So what's fantastic about it, especially in the case of just collection of data, there's no modification on the manufacturer side and on software.
Right.
That's right. On the firmware, they just need to come to us, and they have a console on our website, and they indicate us the structure of the data for their own device, and then suddenly they are on the network. And that's the magic with when you only do one-way communication and just want to collect data from devices, then no modification is necessary.
I'm hanging on, but just barely. So I want to see if I'm understanding this. So is this like an NFC type technology where you apply like a label of some kind and it will communicate with my phone? Is that?
So we use Bluetooth, and Bluetooth low energy to be more specific.
Right. Yeah.
Also called Bluetooth Smart. And it's a fantastic protocol. Started with basically enabling you to exchange communication with your smartphone, for example, without having to do a complex pairing, which is very important to make the user experience seamless. What's happening is the device broadcasts either an identity or a service identity, and that's how basically our broadcast information, which is spread across different, how do you say, so within the signal, when you capture the signal, you're going to receive, we could call that a beacon basically, and the beacon contains different set of information. So according to the structure of the data and what we can recognize in the way the information is broadcasted, basically we can associate that to your device. But that's basically the work that the manufacturer does on their side. We are just like a layer to transport that information, which is available actually in the air. Right. It's a wireless signal, and we recognize, that belongs to Tile, or that belongs to Tracker, or to Chipolo, or to MyStila, or that belongs to a company that's making this, or the hoverboard, for example.
Right.
Boom, and we broadcast that information. And then after they are the one who have the relation with their customer to let them know basically what the device is. But it's a very interesting space.
Very cool.
Just to give you an idea, 1 million active smartphones for us generates 10 to 30 billion events a day. And that's where it's raising certain concerns when you want to talk about actually blockchain.
Yes.
We are thinking a lot with Nodal to how can we tie the collection of data and the connectivity to a blockchain, also because we want at some point devices to have their own micropayment solutions to pay for the connectivity autonomously. It's that's very interesting for many other use cases that will appear, I think, later in the time, but not that late or much further. If you take, for example, a car, you can imagine that a car that would have a connectivity module or software solution from Nodal could potentially connect to a meter and then decide to pay automatically for the meter.
Wow.
That's where it becomes very interesting when you can tie connectivity with micropayment solution. So in the case of just collecting data from 1 million smartphones, like I was saying, and when you generate 10 to 30 billion events a day, and if you want to register that in a blockchain or even register just the transactions, then you are facing the problem of the maturity of this technology today.
Registering every single one of those communication data points on the blockchain.
Yeah. So today it would be. Today there's no practical and ways to do it that can enable that.
Well, is this where your AI background comes in?
So AI may be able to help us identify what really needs to be registered in the blockchain, because not all the information needs to be registered. But it also raised the concern of how scalable are the blockchain technologies today.
Yeah.
And so you have, solutions coming up on the market with instead of registering everything in the blockchain, you can register transaction off chain, and then you perform one registration in a public blockchain. But still, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, maybe millions at some point. And
because like if you take parking as an example, when a city's trying to, you don't have to have a meter made, because the car is just automatically paying the parking fee, or whether it's parked in a garage or on the street or whatever, and that car is moving around all day, potentially paying tokens everywhere as it goes. How many cars are in San Francisco? How many cars are in Dallas that are parking and doing things? That's a gajillion. I don't even know what number that is, but it's a lot.
Yeah, but that's only for cars.
That's only for cars, right? I'm just saying that's one specific example. Or toll booths. How many toll transactions a day happen that could be all tokenized? And holy cow.
And that information could be registered in a blockchain.
Right, exactly.
And some information you want to have it public, because then it's data that for a city or a county could be interested to be used by other companies to optimize efficiencies for the environment or just transportation in general.
Sure.
So I think blockchain is a fascinating technology. You can enable so many things, but still there is a big difference today with where we are. And what we would like, and I think many businesses would like to see happening with the technology, with the blockchain, in terms of scalability that is not available today. And these are the challenges that this technology is facing today. And the best example is Ethereum with the CryptoKitties, and which was one famous application on the top of the Ethereum blockchain that saturated completely the Ethereum network.
I got a level 5 Mancoon. That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh!
I'm trying to get it to level 6.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Super big.
So you were early on, because I have I think I have 7 CryptoKitties, and
oh, you do?
I was only able to. Oh, you paid a lot. I was only able to get a generation 7 up to 11. I think. Yeah.
I did not catch it. Can you believe it? I did not catch the CryptoKitty.
I know you were on it so early. You were.
For cats.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm just kind of trying to put this together, because it sounds like Nodal is changing devices can communicate with each other, and the amount of data and leveraging the data for business use cases. So how does that? So you're talking about blockchain as well. Is Nodal planning on issuing a coin that will be leveraged for these microtransactions? Is that the idea? So essentially maybe even taking on a PayPal or a Venmo on the microtransaction level competitively? So
we are thinking a lot about this, and we would love to create a token that can enable these microtransactions. So we thought about how can we bring a token to the market that could enable these microtransactions and become our internal currency. And it raises a lot of questions, I think, that we are not the only one to ask ourselves. So first, at the level of where the blockchain is in terms of scalability, and many companies are facing this issue today.
Right.
It raises the problem of what if you price your services using that currency, and now you have so much volatility. You don't want your service to be too much expensive to people who are using it. Otherwise, they don't have any more reasons to use their service. So you want to stay competitive. And I think that's one of the problem that one of the early ICO we saw in the Valley, like Filecoin, is facing. Is they have this what they call IPFS, so interplanetary network, to store data in a secure way and encrypted fashion on a distributed network. But with the success of their ICO, basically, I think they realized that the price of storage would be higher than storing data in a traditional cloud like a Google Cloud or an Amazon Cloud. So you cannot really compete with the big players on the market if you start with a cost price that's not at the same level and which is already higher. So and that's many of the problems that I think that coins are facing. That's why you have this new trend now with potentially introducing the notion of stable coins. So I think we are still very in the infancy of what's happening with ICOs and actually the use case that are going to work for tokens and utility tokens specifically. Maybe many utility tokens wouldn't need to exist if they can just be replaced by a traditional currency or cryptocurrency. So it's and then you have this trend where, especially with the regulation moving on, where more and more of the tokens basically may end up being just tokenized equity.
Right. Especially for tokens going to market here in the U.S. If they have U.S. buyers.
Exactly.
They're going to be.
But I think it's going to be the case not only in the U.S. I think it's going to be end up being global, because I mean my opinion is so I write a lot and blog a lot about.
Where do people find that?
So they can find that on. I have a Medium, and I use my second name as a handle, which is Antenor. It's the same as my Twitter, ANTHENOR. So if you do medium.com/ I think @Antenor.
We'll put a link in the article.
You can find my post. Actually, the last one we wrote was about comparing the different blockchain technologies. Who would be the next Microsoft in blockchain?
Right. Right now it's like the EOS versus Ethereum.
Exactly.
Debate, right?
EOS versus Ethereum versus Stellar. So I think it's fascinating what's going to happen in the coming the coming year. This year already, so many changes may happen.
Yeah. What are your predictions?
I don't know if I like to make predictions. I like to.
What's not going to work? That's sometimes easier. What's absolutely going to fail? Like, don't go towards the crypto kitties.
Well, I think you have 99% of ICOs were scams. I mean, a lot of ICOs are, for many, and I've been victim also of some scam ICOs where they put your name on a website as a co-founder. And they raise 30-40 million, and they don't even tell you.
No.
So I think that is gonna probably these scam ICOs are gonna be less and less, hopefully.
Right, because the ICOs have really kind of come in as a new way to fundraise for startups, and I think startups just have these stars in their eyes, and it's going to be easy, fast money, right?
So I don't think that's the case. I think it provides a great tool for fundraising in a different manner. What I feel is it will be like a new instrument for startups. I think traditional funding is still going to exist, and I think actually the two are compatible. I think you can fund a company with traditional funding, and you can find a use case for a token or a coin. That makes it also a way to leverage what you are building with either a new category of shares, or maybe with basically selling some service in advance that people believe because they believe in the potential of your network, which is the case with utility tokens. But it is true that for now the border between security token, utility token, coin is pretty blurry. It is clear to me that if you sell a token through a pre-sale or an ICO or public ICO, and you don't have already a product, it is clear that it is a security. So I think many people may have a surprise in the future, because you have many implications when you build a security token. I mean, a token which is a security, and you sell it as a security token, and then after, eventually it becomes a utility. So how do you change the tax treatment on that? When it's a security, it's an investment, it's a revenue. Then you have to basically consider it as if it's a utility, it becomes revenue. So you have to consider that as revenues. If you have revenue, you have other tax implications different from obligations that you have if it's a security with KYC and AML. So it's I think it's going to become clearer 6 months from now what's the right path and how startup can use this new instrument. I think for now we are still in the middle of the mess.
Still the wild west.
What about someone that's trying to figure it out? Like if that's for startups, what about someone who wants to put their money on a blockchain and buy EOS or buy Ethereum or buy TRX or buy, on and on and on? What are your thoughts on that? Like what's the safe early bet for someone that's not sure what to do?
I don't know if there is a safe early bet.
Okay.
It's very early. you have like probably 1,200 to 1,500 cryptocurrencies currently traded or that exist. I think it's a safer bet if you look at the first top 10 or 20. Probably.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I think Bitcoin will remain like a backbone of this whole industry.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not safe. No.
Right. Yeah. Relatively.
You have to be, I think,
right.
a believer in the potential of the industry and these new technologies, and you have to be very conservative in how you pick the right ones.
You definitely have to diversify.
Yeah, diversify, search and look for a lot of information.
Yeah.
Is this token or coin even used for any business purposes, or is there any application already uses this token, or it's just pure speculation?
I'm looking for a token that's going to disrupt that. It's going to take the casino chip and replace that, because a lot of people have these like micro hunks of money, like, oh, I'm not going to cash out $5, and that money just stays with the casino. So you could take and you could replace that whole chip exchange and do some kind of blockchain-based exchange for your money, and then that seems to. I'm not good enough at business to figure it out, but there's something there.
So that's a very interesting example and probably a good use case. But then you have to deal with physical chips.
Yeah.
So if these chips were like digitally registered in a blockchain for each casino, then it would be super interesting.
Yeah.
Because then you could trade it and.
Right, and you could.
But actually, it would be backed by real fiat currency, because in
Right.
the case of the casino, if you bring back your chips, they're supposed to pay you back. So.
Right.
Yeah. But could you do that without even having a physical chip? Could it be something that you transferred via Bluetooth to a dealer or whatever?
Well, you would need your chip to be attached to a unique identity.
Okay.
Or a unique private key. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anyhow,
like every coin is.
Yeah, I guess that's true, huh? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that'd be fascinating. Okay, I gotta stop thinking about that.
Yeah. So what's next, Micha, for you and for Nodal.io?
Well, we are expanding the network, getting close to, a couple millions now of active smartphones, nodes, which is pretty big, but the goal is to be on hundreds of millions of smartphones to provide a network which is global, and that's quite unique, because if you want to connect your device or connect to the internet today as a business or manufacturer, then you usually have to deal with a different provider in each country, and that's a unique solution where basically you don't have to worry where you ship your goods. Anywhere where you're going to ship it on the planet, you're going to have access to that connectivity layer with Nodal and the Citizen network. So that's, I think, is pretty unique. Then it's super easy to implement because we use the Bluetooth standard. The chipsets are pretty also low cost. And the standard is evolving very well. Like we started to do tests with Bluetooth 5, and we can start to send data up to a mile line of sight.
Wow.
From one device to another.
Wow.
Using Bluetooth.
Some
a mile for Bluetooth?
Yeah, and some smartphones start to be shipped with the Bluetooth 5 interface.
Yeah.
So that's gonna, I think, also. It opens up more use cases for what we do, probably in more industrial use cases for metering, these kind of things. So that's. My focus is on this, and because I also have, very attached to this freedom of speech aspect. I'm working on a messaging and payment platform called Sky Blue, and there the goal is to build what would be the equivalent of Bitcoin. We can call it the Bitcoin of messaging.
Okay.
So a system that we want to be fully autonomous and that can guarantee delivery and integrity of messages and payments, but that ultimately would be controlled by nobody.
Wow. And encrypted as well?
And encrypted. Yeah, you need to have that when you build these kind of networks. So it's a big challenge. There's a lot of competition in the messaging space, especially when you see players like Telegram raising a huge amount of money, and plus the existing incumbents. The WhatsApp, Messenger, WeChat. But it's a fascinating space, and if you do it right, I think there's still for a new player.
Wow.
But that means we are pretty early on.
Right.
And so that's how I spend my time. And
are you going to the Burn this year?
I have no idea. Have no idea.
Well, Micha, it's been super interesting, enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, thank you, Sandra.
Yeah. And
thank you, Pidi.
We learned a ton.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I thought I knew things, like I figured things out in the world. I have no idea what's going on. This is incredible. It's amazing what you and your peers are building for us, because it's great. Everything's changing,
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Well, thank you.